What is up, guys? We are back for a special edition of the Spawn. As you guys know, my normal Tuesday, I kind of did a takeover with my boy Maine, and that was because I knew I had this young man coming on Saturday. I'm going to introduce him. I know I don't normally introduce our guests, but I wanted to introduce this one because one, I'm so impressed with this young man's like fortitude and his passion for fishing. So for those of you who follow my channel, you know that earlier in the year I was participating in the Jigs and Bigs slot tournament. And this is a really cool tournament because it's every fish between 12 and 17 inches counts. The way I got introduced to this young man right here is that he kicked my butt in that tournament. He probably beat me by, I want to say, 50 inches at least. So he destroyed me. I ended up in third, but I had no chance of catching up to him. So I had to have him on because he is the exact example of the people that I love to see at the boat ramp. Young kids that would rather spend his day at the boat ramp than on Fortnite. So we have Brodie on here to talk with you guys. I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions and bear with him because this is his first live stream. So we're going to roll through this. That's funny. So Michael Bradley, one of the guys that follows my show. Yes, we did start early. I actually told Brodie to get in here. I didn't say his name because I suck at podcasting. I asked him to jump in a little bit earlier to do some audio testing, and we just decided to jump on. So we're gonna ask Brodie some questions here. The first question I have to ask was, how did you get introduced to fishing? Was it a family member, or was it just something that you just decided you wanted to do?
It was my grandpa and my papa that got me into it.
Okay. And so I've seen some photos and stuff like that from just different pictures of you fishing on Instagram. But do you just use spinning rods, or do you use casting rods, or do you use a little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. So you're already using a bait caster.
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive, dude. Because honestly, I'll tell you, I honestly didn't start using a bait caster until I was early 30s because I actually did mostly trout and stuff like that, and I was using mostly spinning rods. What's your favorite bait?
Probably a rubber worm.
Okay. Is there a specific color that you like the most?
Probably black blue flake.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and I shouldn't tell you this. Have you tried just solid black?
Yes.
Okay. Do you find that one works better than the other?
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird this year for me. Black blue fleck hasn't worked at all, and I don't know why, but solid black has, and I have no idea why that matters. But it's just something. Now, do you have a specific brand you use? Do you use actual Senkos? Do you use Yum Dingers?
Yeah, mostly young.
Honestly, it's funny because I just started using Senkos this year. I pretty much only used Yum for the longest time, and then I started using Senkos for specific reasons. But um, other than the worms, do you fish any moving baits at all?
Yeah.
Um, what's your favorite moving bait?
Probably a ramp trap.
Okay. And rattle trap. So lipless, whack, man, dude, you could pretty much hang out with me then, because that's pretty much what I use. Is so my main baits are paddle tail, like a swim bait, small ones, not the gigantic Ben Milliken swim baits, the little tiny ones. I use lipless crankbaits. I was actually using a lipless today. Wacky rig. Do you fish any other like finesse style baits, like a Ned rig or anything like that?
Yeah.
Now, what's your, just out of curiosity, and don't take offense to this, I'm just curious because you're so young. Do you have a specific knot that you use to tie? Do you know the name of it, or do you just know how you tie it?
Which pretty much just use a Palomar knot.
Okay, that's impressive. So the reason why I asked that is because I've fished with a lot of kids that they're just tying like they tie their shoes. You know, they're tying like half hitch knots. Like they don't necessarily know what a Palomar knot is or any of that stuff. So for me growing up, this is what's kind of funny about like having a bass fishing channel is that growing up, I did mostly salmon fishing. So I actually knew how to tie a Palomar knot before I knew how to tie my shoes. Like literally, it's not even a joke. Like I knew how to tie a lot of fishing knots before I learned how to tie my shoes. And I was tying like swivels and stuff like that. And I ended up adapting a lot of like that technology brain for fishing, for trolling, for trout. Now you do fish for looks like mostly bass, but do you just go for whatever bites? Do you just take a bobber and worm to the bank sometimes too?
Yeah,
Okay. Do you do like mostly artificial or do you use a lot of worms and hang out on the bank?
mostly artificial.
Okay. Again, that's impressive to me because most kids your age are usually using in my experience, they're going down to the bank with a bobber and a worm. They hang out for an hour. They get sick of it. They chug a bunch of Mountain Dew, eat some chips, and then they go home. And they're just pretty much done with the day. You clearly have the endurance because I noticed, I'm pretty sure in that tournament, you had a lot of like late entries into that tournament. You were fishing right up to the minute, I'm pretty sure. Because I was watching the stats because I knew I was out. So I got home and I kept checking the leaderboard and I noticed you were smitten fish right up into the end, which was pretty cool. So, um, let's see. Do you have a specific lake that's your favorite, or do you just kind of fish wherever you can?
Kind of fish wherever I can.
Now, do you have a lake like near your house where you can just walk there, ride your bike there, or do you have to get someone to drop you off?
I could ride my bike there.
Like, how far is it? Is it a long ride?
No.
See, that's what I used to do when I was a kid. I was telling you in the green room, but like I used to ride my bike for long, long ways, and then had to come pick me up by just not coming back in time, and then they'd get mad and come pick me up and bring me home, so I didn't have to ride all the way back. But that's pretty cool. So, how many rods do you bring when you fish? Just out of curiosity,
Probably two or three.
two or three. Okay. Do you have like a big box of like baits and tackle that you bring, or do you just bring like a small bag?
Mm, yeah, probably a box.
Okay. Just like a couple of EWG hooks and basic stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I've seen you fishing in some of the videos, like the one I use to advertise this stream. You were in a John boat. I'm assuming someone takes you out in that, or
Yeah.
who takes you out in that?
Uh, mostly, mostly my grandpa.
Okay, that's cool. It's funny to me, like how like origin stories. So like when I was started fishing, it was always my dad, right? That was the guy that took me out all the time. But there's so many people that I know that like their grandpa or sometimes their mom, was the person that got them into fishing. And it's like, what's funny about it to me is that there's always this weird curve. So you'll notice as you get older, there'll be a point where most guys stop fishing and
Mm.
then kind of pick it back up when they get older. And that's kind of what happened with me. I stopped fishing pretty much once I got my license, which was kind of actually stupid that I spent the whole time that I couldn't drive myself to the lake fishing. And then once I had the ability to just throw stuff in my truck and go fishing, I kind of stopped, which was dumb. But the one thing, actually, let's do this because I'm kind of curious. What was your strategy for that tournament? I don't know why that just flipped. That was really weird. Did you have a specific plan? Like, were you planning on, like,
That's
do you have a body of water that you always go to that you knew you could catch a bunch of fish or?
yeah.
Okay. And did you have like so did you catch all of those from pretty much the same section of bank? Did you just kind of keep walking back and forth?
I was out of my kayak. And I was just beating the bank.
Okay. What kind of kayak do you have?
Sit on top.
Okay. That's pretty cool. I definitely did not have a sit at top when I was 12. I just barely got my first fishing kayak when I was like 2020. Um, so you're out there in your own sit on top with two rods, some baits. Did you get into the fish? Because I didn't see the early scoreboard, so I had no access to the scoreboard during that tournament until like about halfway through the day. I checked in and then finally was able to submit a few fish. Did you catch like fish consistently throughout the whole thing, or did you have like a huge group that you just caught all at once?
Consistently.
Consistently, just kept catching them. How many? Do you remember how many inches you had? I forget now.
I want to say I had 224.
220. Wow. Yeah. Let me look at. I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna go pull that score up right now. Actually, June nationwide slot series. Yep, 224. So this will give you a perspective, right? This for everybody that's watching this live stream right now. This 12-year-old kid, 12-year-old, right? Bobby said you're 12, but
I'm 11.
11. Sorry. See, Bobby told me wrong. I'm going to have to yell at him now. So this 11-year-old kid at 224 inches, a tournament angler that I know and have fished against in tournaments had 157, and I had 151. So for perspective, I have rods that are older than you. Literally have baits that are older than you. Matter of fact, I have a hoodie that I was wearing fishing that day that I've had longer than you've been on this planet. And you beat me by over 60 inches, which is crazy. The next closest competitor was down like almost literally half of your score. And it's another guy that fishes a ton of tournaments and stuff like that. So, what did you think when did you know you were winning, or were you just so busy catching fish you didn't really check?
I was just so busy catching fish.
So you were surprised when I got to the end of the tournament.
Yeah.
That's so it's funny when I do like I was actually just editing my Slay Nation tournament video, and that's one thing that I had to start doing is not looking at the leaderboard, because when I look at the score, it gets in my head and it makes me fish differently.
Yeah.
And I think that might have helped you because you didn't like have the stress of like, oh man, I gotta catch more fish. I gotta catch more fish. Now, did you go in that thinking you were gonna win, or were you just kind of like, I'm just gonna do this to see how fun it is?
Yeah.
Just kind of how fun it was, just kind of see where you were.
Yeah.
Now, most of the fish you caught, I'm actually gonna check this out real quick. Your entries were, yeah, so you had a lot of like 13s too. So you weren't like just catching 12s. You had a lot of 13 and a halves. And yeah, consistency wise, it does look like you were catching them like pretty, yeah, like every 15, 20 minutes. It looks like you were submitting a fish throughout the day. That's pretty cool. Um, so my boy Scott Vermonter, he's actually probably closer to you than he is me. He lives down in southern Vermont. He he just got a kayak. He just got himself a pedal drive kayak, and I was actually supposed to fish a lake down by him with Bobby. But how did you discover? Kind of curious on this one too. How did you discover the Jigs and Bigs podcast?
Was that a fishing show?
The Springfield one?
Yeah.
What do you remember? What day of the week you went to that one?
I want to say I went on the weekend.
Was it the one where Joe was being introduced as the new host?
Yeah.
That's funny because I was probably there at the same time you were there. So that was the same day I met Bobby. I literally walked over. I mean, I knew him a little bit. I'd been on his podcast, but I hadn't actually met him in person. And I went down there to hang out with him a little bit. And Joe actually wasn't at the booth at the time, so Sean and Bobby were hanging out. And the booth that was behind his booth, I don't know if you remember, but they had like swim baits and hand painted baits and stuff like that. That's actually Abe Lure, who they talk about on the podcast all the time. So I actually met them that day too, and that's when I ended up going to a couple other trade shows with eBay and helping them sell baits and stuff. But so that's funny that we were literally at the same trade show. That's pretty cool. I'm trying to think, man. What's your PB? Largemouth or
Five,
smallmouth or both?
5.5.
5.5. Wow, that's impressive, dude. And do you catch mostly largemouth? I haven't seen any smallmouth photos, but maybe you just haven't posted them.
Yeah, mostly largemouth.
It makes sense because if you're fishing from the bank, largemouth are a lot easier to catch from the bank. Smallmouth tend to be a little bit deeper. That's pretty cool. Um, Now you said black blue worm. Do you Texas rig it or do you wacky rig it?
I do a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. And I'm going to ask you a loaded question. All your fishing knowledge that you have, is that something that someone taught you, or
Yeah,
did you learn it on YouTube? Or
all of it that someone taught me.
okay, do you watch fishing YouTube at all?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite like YouTuber that you watch, or favorites? I guess
Uh, don't really have a favorite.
don't
Just
really have a favorite.
yeah, pretty much just like them all.
Just like them all. Which one do you feel like you watch the most?
Probably the Googan Squad. The,
Okay. Yep. They definitely put out some. I haven't. What's funny is there's a lot of like weird like people like pick on the Guggen Squad or they think like they're gimmicky and stuff like that. Like as a content creator, I think it's the funniest thing in the world that people disparage the Guggen guys because they kind of created the environment that all of us like content guys, live in. Without those guys, the Ben Millikens of the world wouldn't exist because they kind of started it and got everything popular, and then we kind of snuck in and did our thing. But have you seen Tactical Bassin at all? Do you
uh,
watch them at all?
yeah.
How about Alex Rudd?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, I've had him on the podcast a few times. Mikey Balls too. Mikey Balls is actually a buddy of mine. I text him all the time. He's kind of fun. Finally caught up after joining late. Looks like some people are starting to join in here. So, trying to think, man. So, when you fish your kayak, I'm assuming someone brings you down, and do you have to have someone with you, or do you just go by yourself and you're just
I
out
just
there fishing?
I just go by myself. I have a waterproof case for my phone, so I just like
Got it. What's funny is I don't have a waterproof case for my phone, and I probably should. Have you ever dropped your phone in the lake? Is that why you have a waterproof phone case, or
no, I just have it.
just have it just in case?
Yeah.
Man, I can't imagine having the freedom of a sit on top kayak at your age because that would have been so much more fun for me. Because like I said, I was like doing the whole stupid running up and down the bank thing. I never really got to get out in the water. And when you go, you said you like plastic worms your favorite, rattle traps your second favorite. Do you have a specific brand or color of rattle trap that you like to use?
Mm, no,
No, just whatever.
I like the chrome one.
Chrome and blue,
Yeah.
probably. It's got like a blue back on it and the chrome side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget what that's called. I know Berkeley has one that they call like Silver Bullet or something like that, or Blue Bullet or something like that. But that's a pretty cool color. What's funny is I've only caught a couple of fish on that specific color. I catch a lot on like perch colored ones, green chartreusey stuff like that. Now you fish those with spinning rod or casting rod.
Fake caster.
Do you have a favorite bait caster brand?
Probably lose.
Okay. Do you have that? What kind? Do you know which model of lose is like a combo you bought?
I want to say it's a Lose speed stick.
Okay. Yep. Yep, I've used those for sure. Actually, one of the so I'm pro staff for FX, so a lot of my rods have been switched over to FX Customs, but a lot of my reels are loose. I actually use the Carbon Fire reels a lot, the Speed Spool ones, the Mach 2. I had to buy that one because it's a really cool color, but that's that like lime green one.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about getting that one, but
That combo is pretty good. I actually was using that. Matter of fact, two of the fish I caught today were on that exact combo. But
then it was out of stock, so I ended up buying the Mock Smash, I think.
that the orange one?
Yeah, it was like that red and black one.
Yep. Nope. Yep. Red black one. Okay. Yeah, that is the So I had the spinning combo of that.
Yeah, I have the spinning rod too.
The mock smash was the first lose reel I ever bought, actually. And then I actually started buying Cast King reels too recently, and they're actually not too bad, and they're pretty cheap. So is that like your? So you're probably a lot like me, and I just laugh, and I'm thinking of this like when I was a kid, I used to my Christmas list like all my friends' Christmas list was always like video games or cool clothes or certain toys, stuff like that. And my Christmas list was always like hunting boots and like camo hats and certain types of fishing reels and stuff like that. So I'm assuming you have like that's what you kind of you convince the parents to buy you some fish and stuff for Christmas, huh?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Um, I'm going to ask you a question, and it's probably going to be a weird question because you are so young. But do you have like a bucket list lake that you want to fish, like a place that you've always wanted to go to?
Probably Lake Okeechobee.
Okeechobee. Okay. Just because of the so you like fishing grass, then you're more of a like getting in the.
Yeah, I like fishing lily pads and grass.
Do you use like a topwater frog at all?
Yeah.
Now is it just a hollow belly frog, or do you fish all kinds of different stuff?
I use all different kinds of frogs.
Okay. One I will recommend. I'll send you a link on Instagram. So it's a little bit pricey, but Spro makes a. It's called a flapping frog.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that.
So it's kind of like if you've seen like the ribbit toads, like the plastic ones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's got the feet like that, but it's a hollow belly that floats.
I wanted. I think I might have one somewhere.
And those are really cool because you can actually throw them right up on top of like really, really thick grass and just slowly reel it. And the feet just kind of kick along and the fish will just destroy it.
I think Booyah makes one like that.
Yep. They make one too. Yep. Scum Frog also makes one. It's a little bit cheaper. It's a little bit thinner plastic. So what happens with those, it's kind of annoying, is the way they hook the tail into those. They hook the feet in, they're looped through the back of the bait, and the damn bluegill will pull it out. So then it will mess the legs up because the stupid bluegill will eat them up. I have that all the time. I'm constantly having to change baits because the bluegill eat the tails off my swim baits all the time. Do you do the multi species tournament too, or do you just do
Yeah,
the?
I'm actually in it right now.
You're in it right now.
Yeah,
Do you know where you're at in that? I'm kind of curious now.
I think I might be in fifth place for the total points.
Wow, dude, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't. That's fun. See, I stopped doing that because I'm doing so many tournaments right now that I can't dedicate the time to go and targeting other species. But yeah, you're in fifth place with 5 points, right behind Bobby. You need to go catch something and beat Bobby.
Yeah, I'm going tomorrow.
Are you?
Yeah.
What species are you targeting tomorrow?
I want to try getting some bullhead.
Okay. You know what's funny? And it sounds really weird, but you know what I catch bullhead a lot on is rattle traps.
You do?
It's really weird,
I've done
but
that with rubber worms sometimes. I do that a lot with rubber worms.
yeah. So if you fish on, that's the other thing you can do too. Is do you use like the straight tail ones, like the yums, or do you use ribbon tail ones?
I mostly use the straight tail.
So if you take a ribbon tail,
Uh-huh.
right, hook it Texas rig, let it sink, hit the bottom, leave it out there for a while. But instead of just burning it back and then casting it again, slowly reel it,
Weightless?
weightless. So what it will do is it will slowly sink, right? When you cast it, it stays on the bottom. And then if you slowly reel it, because it's weightless, it will sit just above the bottom, but it will start to kind of float up. But what will happen is it kind of looks like a swimming bait fish, and they'll smash it. And that's what's cool about you doing it. So what I like to do is I like to do two different types of retrieve on every cast because it makes it more efficient. So if you're just casting and then letting it hit the bottom and then reeling it right back, how many times, and I'm gonna ask you, and this is why you'll believe me, how many times have you casted a worm in, left it there, decided you were gonna make your next cast, and when you're reeling it back, you see a fish follow it back to your kayak?
That actually happened to me during the slot tournament.
Yep.
I was reeling it right back because I saw one jump, and the next thing you know, it hit it right on the kayak.
So what you can do is what that means is that fish, when that bait started to sink, they watched it and they were curious, right? And they were hanging out right behind that bait. And then when you started reeling it back, they followed it because they were on it the whole time. So what I recommend is this: when you before you burn it back to the boat, start slowly reeling it. You'd be surprised if you actually watch any of my videos, you'll notice that like sometimes when I'm catching a fish, I dead stick everything. I just throw it out there and leave it there and I just let it sit. And then before I bring it back to the boat, what I'll do is I'll raise my rod up one time, let it fall back to the bottom. I'll slowly reel it for a second before I pull it back because sometimes what'll happen is that fish is just sitting there looking at it and then all of a sudden they'll lash out at it because they were curious but they weren't ready to hit it. And when you start reeling it, they'll smash it because they think it's trying to get away from them.
Yeah, that happened to me on a bullhead on a jig. I
Yep,
had so I think I had a Guggen Bandito bug on the back, and
yep.
then I was just popping it along the bottom, and then just hit it.
It's cool that you have that recall too. Like I'm honestly I'm impressed with your knowledge base already because you, like I said, when I was your age, I knew about earthworms and bobbers, and I would throw plastic worms once in a while. Um, so the jig is the same thing. So when I fish a jig, I do the exact same thing. So I'll cast it out, I let it hit the bottom, and then I slowly reel it, and you can kind of feel it. Like you'll feel it hit stuff. If you feel it hit against something, stop and then keep reeling, and it will drag that across the bottom because that's how craws actually live. They kind of just scoot across the bottom and they eat stuff off the bottom. That's pretty funny. What's the coolest fish catch that you've had? Like what's the coolest memory you have about fishing so far?
I want to say it was with top water. I was using a whopper flopper,
Okay.
and there was it was just there was like a whole bunch of fish that were hanging out right by me. So I just dragged it right in front, and one just came over and it hit it. It hit it. It missed it the first time, missed it the second time, and then it came back and it smacked it.
What was it, a small one or the big whopper blopper?
It was the 90.
90. See, I don't like the big ones. I don't understand like
I
the 110, the 130, they're too big almost.
Yeah, I only use the 90 size.
Now, do you use the actual whopper ploppers or are you using a different kind, different brand?
I'll use I'll use the Berkeley Chapo.
The Chapo 90?
Yep.
That is
I
that
like
is the best bait.
I like the moss frog color.
Yep. So I have a Chapo 90 in white, a black one, and I think I have one in that frog color too. The 90, the Berkeley Chapo, for those of you in the chat and the live stream that aren't familiar with it, the thing about the Chapo is it's wider. So the river to sea whopper plopper is a really narrow, more tube shape. The Chapo is almost shaped like a thumb. The 90 is. It's got a wider, it stays flat longer. It doesn't, like, I noticed the river to sea one tends to want to roll over.
Yeah, it tends to like just like
It starts a helicopter. Yep. Yeah, I hate that. Is that your favorite topwater? Is the Chapo?
Yeah, that and a spook.
You fish a spook, huh?
Yeah,
Now, can you walk a spook?
yeah.
You should make a video of that and show me sometime. That would be freaking cool. I honestly, it's fun. Now, do you actually, when you walk a spook, do you like pop the rod or do you just do it with the reel?
I just pop my rod down.
That's impressive because that's a lot of timing. It's hard to get that thing to zigzag. Now, you using the Berkeley one or which one? Probably
I like
Strike
the,
King.
I like the hidden spooks.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Um, that's freaking neat. I'm gonna talk to my boy Abe and see if we can get you some baits too. Um, the I That's funny that you fish a spook because I do. It's really funny to me because I just started fishing a spook last year.
Yeah,
Never
that's,
messed with one.
here's like another one that I like to use.
Yep. Um, that one looks like it might be the sexy dog or whatever, the Strike King one.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is.
That's how you know I've been doing this too long because I can identify the bait from the screenshot. We actually had a question in the chat that I wanted to read off. So, does your school have and I don't know if there's a lot of this. There really isn't a lot of this in the area, but do you have a bass fishing team or any local clubs or anything like that you're able to join or not really?
No.
There's nothing like that. Yeah, up here. So Vermont actually has. You probably didn't even know I was from Vermont because we haven't really talked about it, but um, like I think there's like 6 schools up here that actually started doing high school fishing. So they actually have a high school fishing team at 6 of the schools here in Vermont. I don't know. Do you know of any in Mass that have that? I don't think any high schools do that I'm
Yeah,
aware of.
I'm a mess.
That's crazy. So it's kind of becoming a popular thing. I actually really wish that more schools would do like a school fishing team because I think it would be a lot of fun. Do you have like the dream of being a tournament angler or do you just want to fish and have fun?
Tournament angler.
You do? Okay. So when you get big, I want you to remember Binya Outdoors when you get big and famous. We'll have you on the Spawn podcast when you make your first tournament win in Bassmaster. So that's pretty cool that you want to do that. Have you fished with Joe at all? I know you know Joe.
No.
I haven't gone fishing with him yet. That's pretty cool though. I haven't fished with him either. I think he might be going to that Cayuga trip. I'm sure you've heard Bobby talk about that one that we're doing on Columbus Day weekend.
Yeah. Isn't that the
So
one for the slot tournament too?
yeah, so it's a crazy tournament because Janelle Orsino or Enthusiast Adventurer, who he's out on she's actually been a co-host a few times. She has a bus that she converted, kind of like Becca. Becca does the same thing.
Oh yeah, Bobby was talking about that on the Jason Biggs.
Yeah, so she's actually going to be putting her kayak on my trailer and we're going to be hauling that to the lake so she doesn't have to drive the bus down to the lake. Bobby's bringing the boat and Becca Y, she used to be fishing with Becca as her channel. She's going and she's going to be fishing out of Bobby's boat, I believe. Nick is going to be the guy who's running it, is going to be up there. I think some of the Dark Horse guys might be there. It's going to be a pretty cool event. I think we're probably going to be doing some recording up there too, so I'm sure you'll get to hear. all the chaos in one of the live streams. But that's pretty cool. Do you listen to any other podcasts other than the Jigs and Bigs one?
No.
It's so funny that the Jigs and Bigs one is the one you discovered of all the fishing podcasts out there. That's the one that you kind of got into. But trying to think now. So you're what grade? What grade are you in? You're 11.
I'm in 6th.
6th grade. Now, does Massachusetts do like middle school 7th and 8th, or do you guys do it differently?
We do 7th and 8th middle school.
Okay. See, I'm up here. It's really weird because we have some schools that like middle school is still at the high school up here, so like they just have different classes at different times. So they're all in one building, but they're just in middle school, I guess. But do you like school, or are you kind of like you just kind of grind through so you can go fishing after?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I did it. It's other than fishing, do you have any other hobbies?
Hunting.
Hunting? Okay. Now, deer hunting, or do you do like turkey hunting or a little bit of everything?
I do a lot of squirrel hunting.
A lot of squirrel hunting? Okay. You do that with like a 22 or?
A pelican.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha. That's pretty cool. I used to hunt a lot as a kid. Like that was all I did. I actually used to go out. So I don't know how it is in Massachusetts, but like in Vermont, you pretty much can get a hunting license as soon as you can pass the test. So like legally, I could hunt at like 10 years old, but you had to be with an adult. Obviously, you couldn't just be in the woods by yourself with a gun because that's kind of sketchy. But I started hunting when I was like 12, and I actually used to just exclusively hunt. Didn't really do much fishing, and then kind of as I got older, I actually got more. And which one do you like more? Do you like hunting or fishing more?
I like fishing a lot more.
You like fishing a lot more. It's
I
a
can
lot
do
more
it
to do.
anywhere.
True. Do you ice fish at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have like a specific lake that you go to that you ice fish on, or?
I pretty much go everywhere.
Gotcha. Now, when you ice fish, because there's really two different types of ice fishing. There is the set up a bunch of tip ups and wait, or do you just drill a hole and jig, or
So
both?
in Mass, you can have 4 tip ups in. No, you can have 5, but I put 4 tip ups out and then I just jig.
Okay. And you go by yourself to do that, or?
No, I usually go with my grandpa a lot.
Okay. I don't ice fish by myself. That's why I asked. Um, I, I, so I love fishing. I mean, I spent 6 hours on the water. I literally took Thursday off from work, so I've been fishing this weekend alone. I'm looking at like 30 hours of fishing already before I fish tomorrow. So just to give you perspective of how much time I spent on the water. But ice fishing, there's something about ice fishing that's just boring by yourself and dangerous too. But what's the biggest fish you've caught through the ice?
It was actually this year, this ice fishing year. I think it was a 4-pound bass.
Wow, through the ice?
Yeah.
Crazy. That's funny. So I caught my first walleye ever caught through the ice this year. And then we ended up, so me and a buddy of mine went to a local lake. My teammate actually in tournament fishing, and I caught a smallmouth. That same day, we caught a smallmouth and a walleye. Smallmouth was like 2.5, 3 pounds, and I think it was like a 17-inch walleye. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. You caught that big of a largemouth. Do you catch a lot of largemouth through the ice, or is it like a mostly like pickerel and pike and?
This year, it was like some days I would only get perch, and then other days I would only get pickerel, and it's like some days I would only get bass, and that's how it was like pretty much like the whole year.
Yeah, last year's ice fishing was sketchy anyways. It was really tricky to get on the water.
I only got out once last year, and it was still sketchy.
Yeah, we went out. So that the ice fishing video, the first video I put out, we went out on a lake that was kind of up in the mountains, and I think they had maybe 5 inches of ice. And this lake was so loaded with ice fishermen because it was the only lake in the area that had any ice on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how it
So
was. I don't know. There's maybe about 4 inches ice.
yeah, and then the second time I went out, it was like we were actually fishing. So it's really funny because when you watch the video, it looks like we're like out in the middle of the lake, but we were like 40 yards from shore because we were worried about the ice was getting thinner and thinner as we went out. So we stayed real close to shore.
Yeah, I was maybe only 20 yards out when I went last year.
Gotcha. That's cool. You ice fish though. That's pretty neat. Because like I said, I used to. So what I used to do when I was a kid, which was really fun. I don't know if you've tried this or not, but so I used to, and I wasn't really like a big skater, but like we would put hockey skates on. So we would play like ice hockey. We would basically play pond hockey while we waited for the tip ups to go off, and we would be able to beat all the grown ups to the tip ups because we would be so much faster than them with the skates. So there's no way they could ever beat us to them. That was one of the coolest things that we used to do back in the day. But right now, it's kind of like I don't know if it would be worth it because, like you said, it's like you kind of want to stay close to where you are because you don't know how the ice is going to be around you.
Yeah, I just recently got into jigging because I just got a Vexlar last year for Christmas,
Okay, gotcha.
and it's kind of just like playing a video game.
Kinda, yeah. That is kind of neat. So I have a little Garmin Striker fish finder that has a
Oh,
flasher built into it, so it's kind of got the same. It has a mode for flasher, so it isn't a Vexilar, but it's similar in that sense, and you can kind of see the fish a little bit. But when you're jigging, do you have a specific like? Do you use a minnow or do you use specific baits or?
uh, I usually just use a Swedish pimple with like a
Yep.
little piece of worm on there.
Okay. Yep. That's what we were. So that when we were catching them on when we were jigging the last time I went out, we were using wax worms or maggots or whatever you want to call
Oh
them.
yeah, I use those too.
But we put those on Swedish pimples. I found a bait. Actually, I think it was a Guggen bait. They had this like little. It was like a almost like a little lipless, and it had a
Oh,
hook on the back of it.
oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know
I
one.
don't know what it's called. I'm sure you've seen it, but and it had like this teeny little tiny hook on the back of it, but it was
Yeah.
basically shaped just like a lipless crankbait with a teeny little hook on the back, and we were putting waxies on that, and that was working pretty cool. That's cool. You have a Vexel RT. That's funny. I don't even have that stuff. Now, when you for the auger, do you guys have like a drill or do you have an old school hand crank or
So I used to have a hand crank, and then like Grandpa had a one that you would use with a drill, and then recently just got a new one. So he gave the old one with the drill to me.
that's
So
cool.
now I'm using the drill one.
Now, do you drill your own holes?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm actually getting my drill here. I was doing a project and I actually ruined my drill that I use for like, doing stuff around the house.
Hmm.
And I have to buy a new drill. So I think the drill I had was not capable of doing an auger bit. So I'm gonna actually probably buy the drill because I'm using an old school like
Oh,
auger, like really old school style. It's something my dad had that I just use. My
yeah.
teammate Bear Fishing that does YouTube also, he has the actual like ion electric deal that
Uh,
just yeah, those are cool. Those are pretty neat, but
yeah, but it's tough when you have 12, 13 inches of ice and you're using the hand crank auger.
yeah, it's so the hand crank is awful. And it's actually heavier too, because with the drill you can kind of break it down and put it in a backpack. So if you want to move around, you don't have to have all this heavy stuff. We used to have an old gas one,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like those things weighed like 60 pounds.
Yeah, plus
So
these are tough because sometimes like they don't want to start.
they're awful about starting in the wintertime. Yeah, they do not like to run. My brother actually has an old Jiffy auger, and that thing, not to mention when you start it up, you can hear it from across the lake. Like it's so loud. That's crazy. That's so you have your own drill auger, you have a Vexilar. Do you have specific brand of jig rods that you use, or do you just use whatever the cheap ones?
I like the clear ones.
Okay. Those. So the my teammate Bear that I keep talking about, he
Uh,
actually catches a lot of fish. He hasn't done it as much recently because he lost it in a lake. But for the first year I fished with him, that's all he would fish his finesse baits with when he was in his kayak. He caught his PB smallmouth on a lake here in Vermont on an ice rod.
dip.
Caught a 3.5, 4 pound smallmouth out of my bass boat on an ice rod.
Wow.
Yeah, like he had to have it like up here to net it because it would just bend. But yeah, he used to use those. He used to wacky rig with an ice rod. So I will tell you a little cheat code though. If you're doing Bobby's tournament, is if you're going to take your kayak out and go fishing, take your ice rod, rig it with a bobber, and bring a pack of night crawlers. Because if you need to catch a bluegill or perch or even a bullhead, what you can do is because you have that ice rod, you can cast it with a bobber, and then you can actually hook a bluegill really, really easily, and you don't have to bring a whole different setup to switch species. It works really, really good to catch some of those smaller species. I used to do it, actually put it in my kayak, and then that way I could switch over to like a bobber and worm if I came up where I was seeing lots of bluegill and perch and stuff.
Yeah, I'm in first place right now for a yellow perch for the slot. For the scam
Oh,
fish.
really? What? How big was that one that you caught?
It was 12 inches.
12. So I caught one. Did you see that video I posted on Instagram today?
Yeah,
That perch.
yeah.
So I
There's
caught that on a jerkbait. I caught a couple more just like that. It's the craziest thing that perch will hit some of the biggest baits that you've ever seen.
yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
I've caught them on topwater frogs, on whopper ploppers. I've caught them on everything.
I don't think I've ever caught a perch on a frog, but I've definitely caught them on whopper ploppers. You guys have rock bass in Massachusetts, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah,
Rock bass will hit whopper ploppers like crazy.
yeah. Also, crappie will.
See, I've never caught a crappie on a freaking whopper plopper either. But I've caught those. You know what I catch those on, which doesn't make any sense to me? I catch crappie on jigs a lot.
I actually, for that slot tournament, I was using a jig and I set down my rod because I was going to grab a drink of water. The next thing you know, I saw my line just start slowly going out. So I jigged it a little bit, and the next thing you know, just smacked it. I think only
Yeah.
10 inches.
See, it's funny. So one thing I did for a long time for jigs is I actually used high vis line when I fish jigs.
Uh,
Because I would do the same thing. I would actually just leave it on the bottom, and you'd be surprised how many times that a fish will actually pick up your jig and drop it and you don't notice. Because if you have your line slack at all and you don't feel them pick it up, whereas when you have the high vis, you can kind of see the line. Do you usually use braid? That's actually a good question. Do you use braid, or do you use mono, or do you use a lot of different stuff?
I've been getting into braid a lot this year. I
Okay.
mainly use braid for like my top water frogs, and then yeah, no, use braid for my jigs.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Do you tie a leader on for like your wacky rigs, or do you just go straight braid right to the hook?
So whenever I'm fishing the wacky rig, I use 10-pound mono.
Okay.
That's what I use. And it works
Do you,
perfect.
do you have any specific brand of mono that you like?
I like the that's oh no that's I like the Seaguar fluorocarbon. Is
Okay.
that's a good and for bird I usually just use reaction tackle.
That's funny. I'm pro staff for reaction tackle. So have your mom, if she's okay with it, have her text me your address and I'll mail you some spools of reaction.
Uh,
I got the blue camo, I've got 30, 50. I'll mail you some. If not, I can always send it to Joe and have him drop it off too.
mm,
Yeah, I'm pro staff for reaction tackle, so I actually get a discount on their stuff. So but yeah, they sent me a whole big box of braid. I got like 60 spools of braid from them to give away to people. So that's really cool that you that's so reaction tackle, I will say, not trying to plug them at all, but like it's cheap and it's good braid. Like I like it better than most of the brands that I've bought.
see, the reason that this all got into using reaction tackle. So I was at that Springfield Sporting show and I was over at the Jiffy Biggs booth.
Yeah, Bobby had a bunch of it.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Do you like Fisher's Bird?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he just gave me a spool of 15 pound.
Yep. Yeah, he's on their pro staff too. That's actually how I got introduced to Cody, was through Bobby. So all right, guys, we're going on an hour now, so I'm probably going to wrap this stream up. I've got some videos to edit, but I am going to have Brodie back on. I'll probably have him back on after the slot tournament in October, and we can talk about how he did in that tournament and see if he can repeat and win that tournament twice in a row, because it'd be interesting to see how he does. But I want to thank him for coming on. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. It was a lot of fun for me. I really appreciate seeing a young kid that has this much knowledge and this much passion about fishing. So I want to say stick with it, because I don't know if you heard the live stream where I called Bobby and said that, you need to stick with it, but you kind of are a role model, honestly, in my mind, because you want to go out and you want to fish, you want to learn. And anytime you have a question about fishing, dude, don't hesitate to hit me up. Message me. You got my info on Instagram. Message me. We can definitely talk. I'm happy to give you pointers and tips. I know some of the lakes that you probably fish in your area. So, and if not, I know some people in that area that could probably give me some tips too. But yeah, guys, I want to thank you for hanging out with us tonight, and I will see you guys all next Tuesday.